5 years, so we are doing a blind tasting. I had a lot of requests from our viewers. So now we have 4 wines, and then we are probably the only ones doing it as a blind. There's many YouTubers reviewing this wine nowadays. So we'll start blind taste first, and then I'll tell you what the theme is.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
So they could be anything from anywhere.
It could be anything from anywhere. Here's the thing, we have to focus on the quality. After that, I'll give you a price of each wine. Price for the quality.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
All right. So,
Unfortunately, it doesn't work out. Quality for money works out, but otherwise it doesn't.
Let's
You
say-
pay double for shit Burgundy than you do for good Chardonnay from Chile or something like that. Anyway, anything anyway. And the date today, it's the 20th, right?
This is
Today,
odd,
I think
having
it's 20.
both whites and reds, unless it's from the...
It's 21,
Right.
you're
This
right.
is number 3?
and I'll tell you why. It will make sense later.
Are they all white?
No. 1 white and then 3 reds.
Good intensity, aromatics, apple, pear, French oak, slight diacetyl, silky on the entryway. There's also some tea characteristics, medium plus to full bodied, fairly good acidity, 14-ish alcohol, nice length, creamy long finish. This is a barrel fermented Chardonnay, and I thought this was a fairly warm vintage in Burgundy. Given the oak and the integration, I thought this was probably a Merceau, quite possibly a Premier Cru wine, a fairly good one, not the best one I've ever had. Very enjoyable, very drinkable.
Chardonnay. I'm not happy with the wine. I would hope the French can do a better job than that, but I know not all of them can. I believe you can get this kind of quality from many places in the world. I think it's a very good wine. When you get this kind of oak on the wine, and if it is Burgundy, because they don't over oak, but they tend to over oak their higher level wines in the belief that the wine needs it for aging. So if it is Burgundy, it's going to be a higher level,
Okay.
is my feeling.
David Ramey.
It's a Russian River Valley 2022. The price is $45. The alcohol 13.5, aged 12 months in 10% new French oak.
Only 10%.
Right.
But I suspect, Peter, that the other 90% is 1 and 2 year old barrels. There's no neutral oak in this one. David Ramey is one of the most renowned white wine makers, Chardonnay makers in California. It's a very well made barrel fermented Chardonnay. Stylistically, it does show a good amount of oak.
Yeah, I've had wines of this quality from Tabali and places like that.
Would you like to go for number 2?
Not really. Not quite opaque, but dark ruby crimson, little or no age. There's a bit of green on the nose, but a nice smooth chocolatey entry. On the palate, it was grippy, some quite hard acid there, then some plums, big tannin. But all in all, I like the package. I thought it was complex. I thought it was Bordeaux varieties. For a while I was thinking Bordeaux itself, but in the end I went for a New World Bordeaux blend.
Cassis on it. I get some minerality, some cherry, obvious French oak, ripe tannins, chewy ripe tannins, a hint of diacetyl on the finish. Nice length. I thought it was good quality for its type. So I thought this was New World Cabernet, more so than Merlot, though there are some Merlots that from the New World can be quite like this. And I thought this was either coming from Napa or Sonoma. And so if it was coming from Napa, I'm expecting it to be pricier than if it came from Sonoma. Sometimes the wines from Napa and Alexander Valley can be very similar in style, except that Alexander Valley's less expensive. And so given that, if it's from Napa, the wines in Napa are expensive.
Chimney Rock.
Chimney Rock
Chimney Rock from the Stag's Leap.
2021 is $98.
It's a nice wine.
It's a nice one. What did you say the price was?
98.
$98. Do you recognize the wines from anywhere lately?
Is from the Wine Spectator top
Yes,
100?
it is. The 4 wines that I'm showing you today made it to top 10 of the Wine Spectator.
Wine Spectator, personally, I pay attention to their scores only one time of the year. When the list comes out, because a friend of mine, very good friend, Fred Brander, puts on a top 100 list and I help him source some wines. Peter and I have been tasting those wines at Fred's party for many years now. Sometimes some beautiful wines on that list. There are wines on that list that baffle me as to how it could be on anybody's top 100 or top 500 list. So
Listen, there have been Bretty wines on that list, so you know.
the top 100 is good if you want to get together with friends, taste them, and debate the quality.
Yeah, well, there's 4 factors going to the top 100. Quality, that's number 1. Value, availability in the United States, or number of cases that they made. And then the last one is the energy and story behind the wine.
Number 5, advertising in the Wine Spectator.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay. Third wine?
So this is a light to medium ruby red, light to medium minus. This gets clearing at the rim. I get some berry characteristic, some cola, oak on the palate, medium bodied, medium acidity, 13.5, 14, let's say 14 alcohol. Firm wood tannins. Firm wood tannins. Firm wood tannins. This is Pinot Noir. I had to sit and not taste for a period of time after this.
Number 3.
That diminished the quality of the wine for me. This is Pinot Noir from the New World.
I agree with Patrick in the end that it's Pinot Noir. Yes, besides the oak, there was lots of cherry. Maraschino cherry, but lots of cherry. There's no way, in my mind, structurally, that the Burgundians would do this. Why? Because it seems that the wine is good, but not great. And in Burgundy, they wouldn't over-oak something unless they really thought it was great. So I'm in the New World. So then when you go to the New World, are you in New Zealand or Oregon or California? I don't think California.
I have no idea what this wine's going to be like in a number of years, but the oak was an issue for me.
My final feeling about this is beautiful, silky wine. Didn't need the oak.
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it.
It is Oregon Pinot Noir, Rose Rock, 2022. The price, I paid $49. The Wine Spectator says availability. They took that into consideration, but I had to go to 3 different wine shops to buy these wines. I paid $49, but on the way I stopped by the Costco. They are selling at $30. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I paid $49 for this wine.
You see, now at $30 from Costco, that Peters, it has really nice core fruit under
The
it.
lovely, silky expression of Pinot Noir marred by the oak.
Yeah.
Aged in French oak, 20% which were new
It's amazing.
for 10 months.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much that 20% of the new oak can do.
It's one of the big differences I find with the New World and the Old World. If you put on a village level Burgundy 20% new oak, you'd never notice it. But here you really do.
Peter, last wine.
The last one.
Yes, sir.
Opaque, deep ruby. There's a slight amount of age here, sort of ruby garnet, gradations of color, quite a lot of extract. Not a great amount of extract, but quite a lot of extract. Tight entry, very tannic, high acid. Some blackcurrant here, quite plummy. I thought that this was another Bordeaux blend. I struggled between Bordeaux and the New World because of the way of the tannins. In the end, just by a whisker, I went with the New World.
Initially, the nose was a bit muted. I had some pyrazine. I had leather, which for me is Merlot. I get some plum and cassis. And then I also got some warm bread on this. So I was in Bordeaux, probably left bank, too tannic to be Saint-Emilion. So I was left bank Bordeaux. I thought it had very nice length.
There's a reason why you struggled. So let me see the bottle. It's a Super Tuscan.
Oh, super
It's
Tuscan,
Tignanello,
Tignanello.
okay. You know, I had a Tignanello not that long ago, and I also didn't score it as high as I should have.
It's aged in French oak plus a little bit of small percentage of Hungarian oak for 15 months and then additional 12 months in the bottle. They gave 97 points to this wine. I couldn't find the Dom Mer 2021
I'm
vintage.
surprised you couldn't find that.
I reached out to Andre and then he couldn't even get me one bottle. So I don't know. They talk about availability, but I couldn't find anywhere in the Orange County.
Oh, that was a Drouhin wine? No one knew?
Yeah, the Rose Rock.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Joseph Drouhin.
Yeah, it is. Because I know that the DDO wines age well. It's not easy.
It's a pity you couldn't find this one, because I've been reading about this wine, and I have tasted it.
Yeah.
I bought it in Northern California recently, and I opened it with my family, and I did not like it. So I'm interested to retry it. Good job.
So in general, not too impressed on the top 10. Well, these are good wines.
No,
but
they're good wines.
Yeah.
Take another look at this teen yellow.
I've done that. Now I'm back to exactly where I was the first time. It's harsh, unyielding. But when we were talking about it, and you brought out the fact it was Tignanello, and I had this much left that had been standing here for 20 minutes, there was an elegance there. That elegance is gone. And now I'm thinking it'll come back in another 20 minutes. So if I were to pour it and score it right now, I might bump it up a couple of points, but I wouldn't be raving about it. I have a feeling that 2 hours from now, I'm going to be thinking this is outrageously good.
Yeah. This is the problem for consumers when they buy a highly rated, expensive red wine. And you see alarms, sounds like this go off. When you put a few $100s down, and you bring the 95 point or 97 point wine home, and you pop it, and you taste it, you're disappointed, because this is not a wine that is meant for you to buy it, bring it home, pop it, and taste it. And this is a wine that is designed to either be aged for a number of years before you consume it, or again, if I have this bottle of wine, I purchase it, or somebody's given it to me as a present, knowing what I know now, there's a good chance I would, as a minimum, decant it in the morning and consume it at dinner time. And if I had a couple of bottles, I would decant one the night before, decant another in the morning, and then compare the two.
Okay.
I agree with Patrick, and also we have to remember that this is the 2021 vintage. In any event, it would be young. And 2021 was a really seriously good vintage. And seriously good vintages have their own problems. There's an extraction, and there's a complexity, and there's a concentration that requires more attention. And also the producers get panicky when they get a spectacular vintage. They tend to over-oak and this and that and the other. So they end up making a Van der Gaard even if they didn't intend to, just because the combination of the vintage and their being so scared to not get it right. 21 is certainly a Van der Gaard. I look forward to drinking it later. I rather suspect that will be the wine I drink tonight.
Let's look at the number two. There's lots of power here, but it's very tight. It's a stylistic thing. For somebody who likes young, big Cabernet Sauvignons, and they drink them that way, it's a really nice bottle of wine. Peter and I both agree that wine critics have preferences for styles that they make pretty clear. And one of the MW symposium that I was at, I don't know where it was, it could have been in Austria, but they had one of the writers for the Wine Spectator. He showed a couple of wines. They did some different wine critics. Jancis Robinson was there.
I remember that.
And you could see that they had different preferences. And this guy really liked big wines, but also he was sending a message out that said, fuck you. I like these. And he was showing us these, again, this is over 10 years ago. 15.5 didn't sound all that bad today, but back then 15.5, 16. So he showed us these very alcoholic, 100% new French oak, very extracted wines that he had given very good scores to. So you have to put your palate and preferences into the context of that critic. I mean, for me, his scores would be meaningless because we have completely two different palates.
Right.
Which is not to say that his scores are valid because he has a different palate than I do.
Yesterday, the 15.5 wines, in the end, you don't score them as high as those with more moderate alcohol. They've got so much going on for them, and yet there's just something. The high alcohol shortens them, sweetens them, does other things to them, and in the end, you come back to the ones and you have a look at the ones you really liked, and they were 14 to 14 and a half.
And there's a reason why the higher alcohol shortens the wine. Higher the alcohol, if you take the same producer, two different wines, made the same way, and one we either de-alcoholize or one we add alcohol to, bump it up from 14.5 to 15.5. You put them both in the barrel. The 15.5 is going to be shorter and more bitter. And the reason being is that the higher the alcohol content of the wine, the more bitter the tannins that you extract from the wood. That's the problem.
I remember you came back from Brander's last year, the top 100 wine spectator tasting, and then I asked you how it was. You said you weren't that impressed. Was that your experience?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to get a group of friends together. Everybody pick up, if we can get 5-6 bottles, or in the case of my friend Fred, a slew of people are trying to get bottles of wine, and then it's a fun thing to be with friends, right? One of the most fun times tasting times has been Peter and I and Fred Brander, and we're there in the morning, and we open up all the wines, and we taste all the wines, and then we're talking. What do you think? Is this as good as it should be? Did it deserve the score? Et cetera, et cetera. That's the fun thing about it.
Okay, but don't pay too much attention to the rankings, right? You just find your preference.
Well, yeah, but also see where vis-a-vis a given publication, right? The decanter tends to score wines using somewhat different criteria than the Wine Spectator does. If it turns out that you like that style of wines, then the scores in the Wine Spectator are good for you.
Right.
I mean, for me, when I would see Wine Spectator scores of 86, 87, 88, from places that I like, I was thinking, these may be good wines for me to buy because they're going to be less extracted, less bold. So this...
I've written a couple of articles on that. Basically what it says is, if you're really going to get serious about following somebody, you need to watch what they do and try the wines that they like, so you can get a sense of their priorities, a sense of what they are looking for. And then you can adjust how you feel. You say, oh, I know him. He has no sensitivity to high tannin, or he has no sensitivity to Brett, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If you're going to follow somebody, you have to learn them.
Okay.
You can't just say, here's a very well-known guy, he recommends it's got to be great.
No, it can only be for people with similar palates. One of our colleagues, and I've judged with many of our colleagues and taught in various settings, and sometimes the stars align and we have similar palates. And then there's nothing to add when one person says something or the other. There have been other times when the person score that I'm judging with, who I respect tremendously because of things that they've done in the wine industry, but they have a completely different palate than mine. And it's on a genetic basis. So somebody who genetically does not find tannins to be bitter, when they taste the heavily extracted, heavily oaked red wine, they find the tannins to be silky and the fruit to be rich and the finish to be very long. Whereas I don't have that palate. So I find the tannins to be hard and painful, and it shortens the finish and it turns into a wine that I don't like. On the other hand, some wines that I consider to be elegant, my friend who had a different palate, he would find them, it's insipid, there's not much there. So, and neither one of us is right. We're right because we are genetically different. So just remember, human beings fall into several different and distinct categories. And so if you can find a publication or critics or folks who are teaching whose palate aligns with you, you will be better off.
Anything to add, Peter?
Yeah, but
No. Okay, Al had an idea how to close. So you always say happy life, happy drinking.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Happy life.
happy drinking.
Cheers.
Cheers.